Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Hello everyone, and welcome. I missed last week because I was ill, but don't worry, fear not, I have returned to Watkins Glen. How could I ever miss this beautiful track in the heart of America? I am Aaron Smith, and of course I have Ron Mons beside me and Smooly Kumo in the production booth. And after I missed last week, Ron, fill everyone in on just a quick reminder of how the season is going so far and what we can expect from today.
Well, the drivers have had some troubles negotiating these cars. It really is negotiating, not driving for the most part. Cars are pretty difficult to drive in the season of iRacing, but the races have been getting better. They have been getting cleaner, especially compared to the first race of the season we had when 22 of the 24 drivers crashed. Been getting a lot cleaner, it's been getting a lot smoother. It's also been getting a lot more competitive, so compared to last week at Barber, where I had to commentate all on my own and blew my vocal cords out at the end of the night, we had a pretty decent race, pretty clean race as far as I'm concerned, and I think at this track, one of the most historic in all of the U.S., I think we're set for a pretty decent race tonight.
Well, I mean, I was very disappointed to miss last week as for the first time in this series, our very own Sam Fitzpatrick decided to hop back on in these SR10s, and it was the 1 week I missed. So fantastic, I didn't get to see Sam win last week, and he unfortunately told me he won't even be able to drive this car for another few weeks, so I've got to wait a little bit more if I want to see him absolutely batter everyone else in this car. But so far, in qualifying, only got a few minutes to go, and so far it's a newcomer, Antoine Quilicini, who is on pole position right now by 0.4 of a second from Philip Spencer, and also another half a second away from Philip van den Hoek, who's in third, and we know he's quick. And yeah, and it's always interesting to see a newcomer on to any series and just suddenly go quicker than anyone else. But of course, he might be quick in qualifying, but is he quick in the race? It's a completely different thing, especially in these cars where consistency very much at the moment is key. And I think Philip Spencer, coming around the final corner, is the last person in qualifying to finish up his session as he comes around the final corner to complete his lap. He's going quick so far. Can he be quick enough? No, he can't. He actually doesn't improve on his overall lap time. Possibly, maybe an off-track, as he went purple, I believe, in that final sector. But just, I think he may have gone off the road somewhere at some point, but maybe he has another lap. But even if he does, he's not going to be able to finish it. So, voice crack, we're just going to have to wait another 30 odd seconds for all these drivers to calm down and make their way through this chicane. Is Paki Caruso, the number 6 car, also fairly new to this series. Not really seen him too much, and would like to also mention that we've only got a 13 car grid today, as we had 2 different splits, split because of one driver that joined at the last minute. So yeah, we're going to have a very competitive field of these 13 cars today, but it's going to be a small and compact field. Is that going to be interesting? We will find out. But one man who's been very interesting so far, only in these few minutes, is Anton Quellicini, who is on pole position here. 4/10 of a second ahead of Philip Spencer, who lines up alongside him on the front row. Philip van den Hoek in 3rd place, Andreas Friedrich in 4th place, Rafael Peoni in 5th, Aki Caruso in 6th, David Ralston in 7th place, Sauli Reitinen in 8th, Jorge Gonzaga in 9th place, and Mika Hulkinen rounds out your top 10. And then only 3 other drivers left: Miguel Madrid in 11th, Mike Clark in 12th, and your last place man, Felix Samoes, who we know is rapid in these new SR10s this season. Can he do anything from the back of the grid? Well, we'll find out, as I think he's gonna take the fight to this entire field and put on an amazing show for us. Before we get going, is there anything you'd like to say, Ron? Any final thoughts?
Well, I think with Samoa starting at the back, I honestly think he's just trying to challenge himself. Of the races we've seen him run so far this season, he's really been pretty much uncontested for the most part, either running towards the front, or we had Sebring where he crashed out one turn into the race, had a bizarre incident where he lost control going through turn 1. But I think he's just trying to give himself a challenge at this point, so that's probably why he's starting towards the back.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there, but he's taken an awful long time to get gridded up in this race. But yeah, maybe he might be just looking for a challenge, or maybe he had some kind of issue, because he's still not lining up on the grid. Maybe he's waiting until that final second, or maybe he's starting from the pits. Nope, he was waiting for the last second, of course, as we wait for these 5 iconic red lights to go out. And that's Quellicini already jumping the start. We'll see if he gets a penalty, but we're underway here in Watkins Glen, and Quellicini gets a pretty decent start, and there's already a crash in the background. That's, I think, the second time we've seen that this season. Crashes even before we get to turn 1. That's Reitinen and Peoni involved, and that's already 2 places for Felix Samoa, is up to 11th place. But it was a good start from our pole sitter, who's already storming away. But now, as we run through turns 3 and 4 all the way up the hill and onto probably the most iconic part of this circuit, this long straight, all the way to this version of the layout, the chicane, as the drivers head through here for the first time. Not really smart to go side by side through here, but David Ralston has had a decent start, up 1 place, but he's got Gonzaga all over his rear bumper, who's actually fallen a bit behind going through that chicane. But Madrid as well, the number 13, gaining a few places, but it's Madrid actually who's gained 4 places off the start. Gonzaga under pressure now from Hulkinen, but it's a good start for these top 10 drivers. But that Peoni and Reitinen incident was not an ideal start. Nevertheless, as we come through the end of Sector 2, it's Quellicini in the lead.
That was a strange one from Peoni. It looked like he just, I don't know if he just left the grid steering wheel all the way to the left and then just stopped, realizing his mistake, because that was a strange one. It just looked like he stopped in the middle of Reitinen, who's now towed back to the pits. His chances of contending for a win tonight are pretty much over. Besides that incident towards the back, you know, pretty clean start so far. One thing I think you should probably keep a note on throughout this race is just looking at these drivers negotiating the curbs going through the bus stop, because I mean that inside curb, that inside curb going into the bus stop, that's a pretty tall curb, all things considered. Trying to get really close to the wall but not hitting the curb too hard and kind of screwing yourself over. The weight transfer is really important in this car, and especially in this season, so I think that'll be something we need to keep an eye on throughout this race.
Yeah, and also this is a fixed setup series, so not really much the drivers can do in terms of changing the setup to make it a little bit easier to go over that curb. And yeah, that is looking like a pain for these drivers. I think Quillicini went over that very, very aggressively. You saw Spencer and Philip van den Hoek get incredibly close to him, but just starting to edge a little bit away now, as I think Spencer just braking a little bit early, as you don't want to be right on the back of your rival going through these fast corners, as it kind of limits your potential to get a good exit on the exit of these corners. As coming out, it will, that dirty air will affect you massively, especially in these high downforce radicals. But Spencer still giving chase to Quillicini, and I think these top three are going to give us a very, very intriguing race for the lead, as different drivers taking different lines. That was Quillicini going very, very wide, but Ron, we know Spencer and Philip's pace pretty much throughout this season, but Quillicini's a new one. Who's your money on in these first few laps?
Well, I was going to say early on in this lap that my money was on Spencer, but looking at the speed that Herc has for the second half of this lap, it looks like he's really keeping tabs on Spencer. He's very close to the back of him. Quillicini, though, I think he has pretty good speed so far, but yeah, you see Herc with the fastest lap. Of all of them, fastest lap so far, I believe. So, a very good pace from him so far. I think he's probably going to be my one to look out for, but I think these top three, very competitive. Quillicini, I think he might have learned his lesson as we were going to go into the bus stop this time. Might have learned his lesson from last time when he hit the curb pretty hard, very aggressive curb strategy from him, and that kind of screwed him over on exit, as we saw Spencer get very close to the back of him last lap. But Manchu through there cleanly, but I think my money's on here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you. I think Philip has that little bit more experience and that little bit more pace and possibly consistency as well. He did win the opening round in this season, of course, at Road America. God forbid we talk about that race again, but yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you that number one is looking feisty right now, but it's not easy to overtake on this track, especially if you're in a slipstream train. He's got a lot of work ahead of him, but this is the battle going on just behind them with Caruso and Frederick battling out for fourth place. I say battling, they're about a second separated from each other. I think Frederick just backing off a little bit. He was right up close to Caruso a lap or two ago, but now just starting to fall back a little bit. The number 5 in 5th, so rather fitting, you could say. But Caruso, though, the number 6 in number 4, so maybe not as fitting, but he's putting in some good laps so far. Actually half a second away from the leaders, so it goes to show just how fast these leaders are, as Philip van den gets past Spencer there with relative ease. I don't think Philip was fighting that one at all, really. We could say that might be a smart decision. We're going to find out, but Philip is looking feisty. He's gaining on Quillicini, but just ran out of road as we came into this chicane. And you can see that Quillicini, that seems to be his one weakness on this track. That chicane does not seem to favour him at all. I think it's on entry where he's struggling. And, well, Ron, now that Philip has gotten past the other Philip, yeah, you got to say it's looking like a win for Philip van den so far.
There's Rolston spun around. I believe that's at turn 7, I believe, going downhill into the section we call the boot, the extended section that they had added here. That was a strange one, but well, we'll have to get a replay on that. But that was a tricky corner for me trying to drive these cars throughout the week. That one really is weight balance as well, going downhill, trying to carry a lot of speed through there, and also trying to hit the brakes. You're very susceptible to lock up, so there's been an incident with locking up there. But getting back to the battle with the lead, Quillicini, I think, yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, that might be his only weak spot going through the bus stop. Especially, like, of all corners to have a weak spot, the bus stop is probably where you don't want to have one, because if you make a little mistake there where you have to be pretty much millimeter perfect, you're gonna be in for a world of hurt if you make any kind of, like, very drastic mistake. Certainly if you make, like, a small little mistake, it might not be too bad. You see understeer of these cars going through the first few corners, as we're going to see Herc. It's a very strong slipstream as he's going to try and look for the lead. Is he going to move done? He does. That is a fantastic overtake from Philip Vanden Herc. We were just talking about how, well, we were talking about at the start. As we see Wilkinen go off. Very strange interpretation of track limits there. I think he'll have to give up some time. But, yeah, we were talking at the start how the bus stop may not be a good overtaking opportunity, and Philip Vanden Herc just kind of smashed that theory. What do you think?
Yeah, I've got to agree with you. I accidentally had my mic muted, but my reaction was sort of along the lines of, woohoo, wow! Yeah, that was around the outside of the bus stop. I haven't seen a move like that for a long time. The last time I probably saw anything like it was possibly a couple months ago, or even last year during the Watkins 6 hour. That was a rather impressive move. I think Quillicini might have made it a bit easy for him, but I mean, credit where credit's due. That was a ballsy move, and it's moved him up into first place. We'll see if he can hold on to it. Like I said during qualifying, I think Philip just has that racier pace compared to some of these other drivers, and that's where it counts. That's where it matters. And also pinching yourself onto the inside curb like Quillicini did last lap, it rather just ruins your run through that entire section. And yeah, I think that's why he's lost a lot of time. I think he was around half a second when this lap started, but this just shows you how powerful the slipstream is around a circuit like this. He's gaining so quick, but chooses to back out of it. I just don't think he was quick enough through that last sector to get close enough.
A good run through there. That was a great run through the bus stop. He might have a decent run himself here. It's tricky trying to maintain that speed and the slipstream as we see her go a little bit wide there. That was very flirtatious with the grass coming out of that turn. But I think Quillicini, I mean, he may have dropped down to second, but he's holding his own at the moment. So I think he has a decent amount of pace. I think he's holding up his stuff for a while. I mean, we're not even halfway through this race at the moment. So I think Quillicini, even though he may be down in second, and even Spencer as well, I think these three are still in it to win it. I think they all have a decent shot at winning this race.
Yeah, definitely. I think Spencer has probably the least likely chance of winning this race unless these two make some kind of contact. But I think that might be Spencer's game plan, actually, to just sit back and let these guys fight. It might be his strategy, or maybe he doesn't quite have the pace to match these two. But nevertheless, they're giving us a great battle for the lead at the moment. And I don't really think they're separated too much by pace. I think Quillicini might have good one-lap pace, but I think Philip Van Den just has that more experience to win this race. But of course, we're just over halfway now through this race, and it's been an interesting game of mind games so far. But can Philip Van Den make it count? Quillicini's going to have a big run into the chicane, but I think he's still too far back. He's got to make that last sector count a lot better than he is at the moment if he wants any chance to win this race. As you could, yeah, exactly, Ron. It is woo, isn't it? Going through there.
That was a pretty interesting strategy with the curbs through for both of them. You know, Herc was very close to that inside wall. I wouldn't dare go that close if it were me, but he managed to get through and actually managed to go through that series of corners faster than Quillicini. I was going to raise a quick point after that last lap that Spencer managed to go 2/10 quicker that last lap than both of these two in the lead, but I mean, he's still will have to make some decent laps like that to manage to catch up to these two, let alone pass them. But yeah, another point was the slipstream and how big of a role that's playing with this race so far. We're going to see Herc try and break that slipstream. I was surprised he wasn't weaving on the backstretch, to be brutally honest with you, trying to break that slipstream. We saw him on the grass a little bit there, but I think the slipstream is going to be a pretty... I think it's going to be a pretty important strategic kind of decision in this race. Do you go for the slipstream? Do you try and defensively kind of break that slipstream, kind of like the battle between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen at the end of the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix? Dare I mention that race because of the controversy around it? As we see, Herc had a little bit of a moment coming through that turn. might not have the best of runs going onto this back straightaway. We'll have to keep an eye on the gap between Herrick and Quillicini. Quillicini. I'm butchering that pronunciation. Yeah, you can see the gap closed down a lot. Quillicini could have gone for the move there, but I think he backed out of it, and I think that's honestly the smart decision. Yeah, just the slipstream of these cars is absurdly powerful, as we see probably another slipstream pass going into the bus stop. Pretty interesting racing we've seen so far.
Yeah, it kind of just seems to be follow the car as closely as you can and just wait for the bus stop, because around this track there's not really any slow corners around here. They're all pretty much medium to high speed, and that's why around here, if you're not in high downforce cars, you tend to not really see that many overtakes. But if you are in high downforce cars, like we are today, you tend to see a lot of slipstreaming. And this is another overtaking opportunity which is quite popular. But unfortunately, Madrid just was not close enough to Hulkinen this time round. And once again, just going to have to wait for that long back straight into the bus stop. Unless he can maybe get another opportunity, but I think it's just smart to wait for that bus stop, as we see Quillicini as well. That gap's starting to fall off a tiny bit. I just think Philip van den Hoek just has that little edge, in my opinion, that more experience during the race especially. Qualifying doesn't matter as much for experience. It's just go out there, be as quick as you can. But during the race, it's a completely different game in these cars. But Madrid and Hulkinen, this is going to be the battle for 7th, and I think as long as Madrid can get a good exit, which he does compared to Hulkinen, he's going to have a great opportunity to get a move done into the bus stop. As long as he can get this slipstream to a P, which I think he is. I think he might be just holding out a little bit, but he's got a nice run. He's going to have to go to the outside through here, which is going to be risky. Is Hulkinen going to try and fight it? He is going to have to be careful not to make contact. And Madrid hanging on around the outside. I have no idea how they didn't make contact. I really don't.
Yeah, ooh, they nearly made contact coming out of that turn there. That was some pretty decent racing, pretty clean racing, and pretty awesome racing as far as I'm concerned. You hear me giggling like the Joker as those two went side by side as they continue to go side by side through the boot. Madrid going to go for the switchback here. Hulkinen closes it off. He'll be forced to go around the outside. They're going to go side by side down this little short stretch here. I think Madrid had the other better exit, but Hulkinen is going to have the inside line as he stays ahead. But that was pretty good. I'm honestly up. Switchback, yep, there we go. And it's going to be a continuing battle with these two as Hulkinen keeps a position. Is it going to be another switchback? Ooh, nearly. It was nearly a switchback. Is he going to go for the move here? Unlikely. That's not a very opportune overtaking opportunity as far as I'm concerned, but I'm surprised those two managed to go through bus stop and didn't have any incidents there, because that was extremely close between those two.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show that you can have great racing around here in these cars, and you always love to see it. But I think this time Madrid might just be a little bit too far back, as you want to be around 0.4 of a second coming out of that first corner. But here's a move we might be able to see. No, Frederick just backs out. I think, yeah, it's these fine margins. And actually, I'm going to eat my words. He's going to make a move, and never mind, it should be about 0.5 second that you won. So I don't think he made contact with the wall, but he nearly kept
looked like he had that. Then it looked like he might get hit by Hulkinen as he rejoins the track, and then he just spins. So tough break for Madrid. That's really unfortunate. He might have hit the inside wall there, or his car just got upset really bad from the curb. We'll get a replay. Riding on board with him going into the bus stop. Oh yeah, just got really upset on that curb. I mean, we were talking about how high that curb is. You know, it doesn't really seem too bad, but it's like hitting a cliff in these cars. You get at least one wheel off the ground, maybe 2 or 3 or even 4 if you hit it hard enough. But yeah, tough, really unfortunate for him there.
Yeah, and we were getting such a good battle from those two as well, but
here's a battle.
Yeah, I was going to say, here's the closest battle. The next best thing for the lead this time. as the battle for the lead continues between Quillicini and Van den Hoek. And even though I said Van den Hoek has that little bit edge in terms of the straight line speed, what am I talking about? The racing experience. God, I can't get the words out of my mouth. It's just too exciting as they're about to go
Quillicini's
side
gonna
by
have the
side.
edge on
Surely.
straight line speed. Oh boy, and that is a commanding move down the inside. If he can keep it clean through these next couple of corners, he's going to take the lead with just a handful of miles to go here. I mean, we're saying that maybe half a second was really the striking range to try and pull off a slipstream overtake going into the bus stop. And he was pretty close. He was, I think, 0.4 of a second behind Herrick coming out of the first corner and just closed in. And by the time they hit the actual back straightaway, they were within 0.2 of a second. So I think Quillicini, he has the lead. We only have a couple laps left, but I think Herrick is still the one that you gotta watch out for because he's now in that slipstream. I think he is in the catbird seat as we approach the final couple of laps here.
Yeah, it's these fine mind games that... This is the type of track where mind games is #1 priority. You've got to be at the right place, right time. Wink, wink, Ron. And Philip van den Hoek really needs to be right place, right time, as we've only got 2 laps to go when we cross this start-finish line. And do you want track position? Do you want to be behind the other car, get that slipstream? Quillicini sets the fastest lap of the race, of course, aided by slipstream. But who's it going to be? Is it going to be Quillicini? Or is it going to be Van den Hoek? We will find out, of course. Stick with us here at Apex Racing TV to find out. You've only got a few minutes to wait. Be patient. And also, got a battle brewing for 4th place as well between Friedrich and Caruso, as I think Friedrich on this time around again might be a little bit too far back. But of course, last time I said that, I got my words eaten. And who knows, maybe he's going to have a little bit of a boost going into the bus stop. No, he just backs out of it. For now, maybe he's waiting for the final opportunity on the final lap to go for it. We will find out. The number 5 and the number 6 going for an incredible last lap battle for 4th place. But that's not the only battle we've got, of course. The battle for the lead is where it's at. And honestly, Ron, I don't know who's going to win this.
I think it might be Herrick. I mean, he's pretty close to Quillicini. I'm sorry, I really do apologize. He's really close to the back of him. I mean, we're going to approach the final lap here, and if he gets a good run going onto that back straightaway and he can get the move done, I think that'll be game, set, match for Herrick. Really, Quillicini, it really think the first corner is just the most important corner of this race, because if he gets a bad run coming out of there, he's gonna have a bad run going onto the back straightaway. I think it'll be I think Herrick will be in the catbird seat as we go on to the final lap. It is Quillicini and Philip van der Herk, first and second, and I think it's going to be interesting between these two. Herrick is just not close enough from the looks of it. He had a decent run coming out of that turn. It will be real close going on to this back straightaway.
Yeah, and Philip van den Hoek, that last lap, set a new fastest lap, but is it going to be enough? This might be his last chance. Is he going to have to just send it into this bus stop? He's getting ever so close. Yes, he's going to go to the outside, backs out a little bit, but it pinches Quillicini onto that inside line, giving him a poor exit. Is he going to have the run through turn 5? He's going to get so much understeer in that dirty air and is just not going to have the momentum, but he's got very late on the brakes. But I think that was not the right thing to do. He's lost so much time from doing that, and I think actually for this once his experience hasn't really made the difference. Quillicini then, I think he's got this in the bag. He's only got a few corners to go, and I think Van den Hoek just was too impatient. He didn't plan out that perfectly in that middle sector, and just I gotta say, kind of threw that race win away. And he had the opportunity to go for it, and unfortunately that half a second gap is just not going to be enough as Quillicini comes through the penultimate corner. The number 3 has not, I don't even think he's shown up to any of these races, but he's come on here and absolutely battered the rest of the field in qualifying and now in the race. Antoine Quilicini takes the victory here in Watkins Glen. A very, very classy performance by him. And wow, that's going to be interesting to talk about for the rest of the season. And I'm astounded. I really thought that Van den Hoek had that in the bag, but in fact, he did not. And I think also Andreas Friedrich might have made some kind of mistake going for a last lap overtake on Caruso as he finished 6 seconds behind him. So clearly something's happened there. But wow, that was an interesting race from start to finish. Quite literally, we had a crash on the start. Then we had some battling in the midfield. And all the way until the end, we had a battle for the lead.
Yeah, that was a very interesting race, very fun race to watch as well, and very fun to commentate. Hopefully you can share my opinion in that, Aaron. And yeah, interesting, really great drive from Quilicini. You know, as you said, he's really, I wouldn't say outsider is the best word. It was an upset for tonight. We've had a lot of upsets so far this season. We had one in Sebring, we've had one in Barber, and now we've had one in Watkins Glen. So 3 races in a row. We'll have to wait and see in 1 week's time what happens in VIR for the next race of the season. But Quilicini, very solid drive. I think what kind of doomed Herc towards the end of this race was he just wasn't close enough. You know, as I said, when Quilicini went for the move on Herc a couple laps ago, he was, I think, 0.4 of a second, a little under 0.4 of a second coming out of that final corner, and Herc was just 1/10 of a second, like farther back than Quilicini was when he went for the move on him. So I think it's just Herc just didn't have the pace towards the end of that to contend for to contend against Quilicini.
Yeah, I think you put it pretty much perfectly. I just think he just wasn't close enough, and at the end got a bit too desperate, a little bit too impatient, and in the end came home in second place. He gained a place during the race, but you just know that's just not what he wanted at all. And wow, what an interesting little race that we put on for you guys. And in the end, it was Antoine Quilicini, can't even speak today, who came out victorious. And I think we can expect great things for the future for him in this series, if he of course comes back. But it was Philip Van den Hoek who came home in second place, Philip Spencer in third, got 2 Philips on the podium, how fitting. And then we had Caruso in fourth, Andreas Friedrich in fifth, Jorge Gonzaga in sixth place, Mika Hulkonen in seventh, David Ralston in 8th place, Mike Clark in 9th, and Miguel Madrid in 10th place, rounding out your top 10. And then your non-finishers for today were Felix Simoes, Sully Raitanen, and Rafael Paoni. And yeah, I think Felix Simoes as well got caught up in that lap 1 crash, which it would have been so interesting to see him come through the field. But yeah, I don't think we ended up seeing what happened to him, which is a darn shame. I really was looking forward to seeing his comeback. But yeah, wow, what an interesting little race we had there. And Ron, you know, going into just the rest of this season, I think it's looking pretty interesting now.
Yeah, very interesting. These drivers are really getting more comfortable with these cars by the passing week. And I think with more comfortable drivers, I think with interesting tracks coming up like VIR, Suzuka, and of course the season finale at the Nordschleife, I think these drivers are getting a lot more comfortable. They're getting a lot faster, and I think they're getting a lot more bolder with a lot of the moves they're pulling off. We've seen some pretty bold overtakes in this race going into that bus stop. Very interesting, compelling race from today. So yeah, I think we have a lot to look forward to for the other rest of this season.
Yeah, I think you put it as well as you have done today. You put it pretty well, and doesn't look like anyone is going to join us, unfortunately, for this week. But just before we go, just a couple things I would like to talk about as well. You know, we've had a lot of newcomers into this season, actually, maybe because of the new cars as well. You know, the way they updated it, making it a little bit more tough to drive. And Ron, because these cars are tougher to drive, do you think they're actually more enjoyable to watch during the races?
I think there's a fine line to run when it comes to challenging cars. You know, if you have something where the drivers can certainly get their they can get their hands wrapped around the car and figure out how to drive it as well as they can, that leads to great racing. But when you have situations like Road America, the season opener for this year, where the drivers were really caught off guard with how bad the cars were driving, then you have a situation where just no one can really race well. You know, having challenging cars where the drivers can make mistakes, but they can also, you can have a leg ahead of your competitors if you can get your hands wrapped around a certain car. That leads to fantastic racing like we've seen today. When you have really challenging cars that are tricky to the point where it's just completely drivable, for lack of a better term, that's when you have bad racing. We had great racing today because these drivers are really, I mean, I've said this like 5 times in the past minute, but they're getting their hands wrapped around these cars. They're figuring them out, and it's just leading to better racing. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good way to phrase it. I think because they're kind of forced to drive these cars more, to get the better of them, to drive them better, they're actually improving their racecraft in doing so, improving their skills as a driver, and you know, maybe that's iRacing's secret plan: make the car worse to improve the driver's skill, then make it better again. Maybe, who knows? It could be iRacing's big brain plan all along, but yeah, who knows? But whatever, these drivers are getting better, and they're doing better both on and off the track because of it, and we're loving it. But that's about pretty much all we have time for today. It was another beautiful day of racing for these radicals. Of course, it's going to continue throughout the rest of the season, and we're going to get even better racing because of it. I've been Aaron Smith, joined by Ron Mons in the commentary booth, and obviously Samuli Kumo doing a wonderful job in the production booth as always, and we will see you next time out. Hope you guys will be there. Enjoy the rest of your day, and goodbye.